welcome to the Anfield Wrap. I'm Neil Atkinson. With me, I've got Pete Bolster, I've got Ian Ryan, I've got Phil Blundell. Out the top, we're going to be dealing with Mo Salah. That's coming in a minute or two. And then from there as well, we're then going to talk, obviously, about what happens on the grass against Leeds United. And then we're going to look ahead to the game against Inter Milan. Also, John Gibbons is talking to James Pearce about his book. That is to come as well. But before then, we are in association with our friends at Peloton. They're partnering with us for a second year. They're the official cardio and strength partner of Liverpool Football Club. There's loads going on with them at the minute. I talk about it every week, but what's really important this week is that there's excellent offers on at onepeloton.com until December the 8th. So at the minute, they're offering £550 off their cross-training series and bikes. It is an amazing offer, an exceptional one, but it only runs until the 8th of December. Right now, it's the 7th. Tomorrow is the 8th, so therefore that clock is ticking, and I wanted to let you know about that. Also, just as another little bit of admin up the top, the Anfield Wrap are back out on tour in February and in March. So there is an Irish tour coming in February. Limerick, Dublin and Belfast, they will all be on sale, and we're still trying to secure one more date in Northern Ireland. Craig has written down here for me, up to you whether you say it's Derry. We are trying to get a venue, so it might help us. No fucker in Derry will ring me back to confirm. If you're a fucker in Derry, it would be fantastic if you could ring Craig back to confirm one way or another. He's doing the best he can. So on the 4th of February, we're in Limerick in Dolan's. On the 5th of February, we're in the Sugar Club, Dublin. On the 7th of February, we're in Belfast Limelight 1. It's a bigger venue. We'll go for a pint afterwards in Katie Daly's. That's very specific, but we know. And then from there, we're going to Australia and also to New Zealand. Crucial to say, Australia and New Zealand tour rather than just Australia. It also says here. So therefore, Auckland and Perth are coming. They're not yet on sale, but they will be happening. The others are now on sale. Sydney, 22nd of March. Melbourne, 24th. 2 shows early and late on the 24th in Melbourne. Auckland will be the 25th in New Zealand for the first time. 27th Brisbane, 28th Adelaide. Perth, 29th. These shows sold out in days last year, so get on it, and obviously it'll be different because it has to be the way in which it is at the moment with the Reds. theanfieldwrap.com/TAW live for all tickets. That is all that out the way, and we're going to talk about Mo Salah, whether we like it or not. Mo Salah has insisted on the matter. It's worth saying. Ian Ryan, what are your thoughts on Mo Salah's extensive comments?
Yeah, it's not for me, to be honest. I don't like it when players come out and air the dirty linen in public. I think this type of thing should always remain behind closed doors. And by all means, you can be frustrated, have a conversation with the manager. He might have already done that. And even if he's not liked what he's heard, I still don't think it helps the situation where you're basically pouring petrol on a already volatile situation. We know the season's not going well. We know the manager's massively under pressure. He's in a really bad spot. And he's in a bad spot because he's underperformed. And I think he's probably going from game to game at the minute. And there's a possibility that, across the next 2 games, if results don't go well, he might well find himself out of a job come next week. I think it's that bad at the minute, the situation. But I don't think players coming out and adding to it helps anyone. And I think online it seemingly is you're either for Slot or you're for Salah. But I don't really see it like that. It's about the football club. And I don't like it when anyone thinks they are maybe a little bit bigger than the football club. And I know Salah's come out and said, I'm no different to anyone else. But by doing what he's done, it feels like you're making it all about yourself. And it's a bit self-centered. And I'm not into that bit at all. Because, as I said before, the manager's got problems. And we know that. And if he continues in this fashion, he will manage himself out of a job. That is the reality of it. That is the brutal reality of the situation. But as I say, players can be frustrated, and I get it, because if you're asking me what I would have done over the last couple of games, I probably would have played him against Sunderland, and I probably would have played him against Leeds as well. I'm not particularly enjoying watching Cody Gakpo at the minute, so I get the frustration. But guess what? The manager's got to be able to pick the team. He's got to be able to have the freedom to pick the team. That is what he's paid to do. And you cannot have players, no matter how big they are, no matter how much they've done, you can't have them dictating who starts in the first 11. And as I say, all of these players, the Gakpos, Verts, Ekitike, Isak, at different points, they've all been left out this season. Now, none of them have got a track record as good as Mohamed Salah's, but it's about the here and now. And where I massively disagree with the statement is when he says, I've not really got to earn my place, I've done that. I've proven myself. I haven't got to earn it. I haven't got to fight every single week. I'm paraphrasing slightly, but no, you do have to fight every single week. You have to earn the place to play in this team, regardless of whether you've scored 250 goals or not. We can celebrate that when the time's right. But right now, Liverpool need everyone to be at it. And I've been on shows and said at different times, I probably would have left Salah out on different occasions this season. I think you've seen in certain games, there's been a weakness there. You know, you've had Cucurella come out after Chelsea and said, well, Maresca said to us at half time, that's where you'll find the space, in behind Mohamed Salah. And guess what? They find space that day. And listen, it's not just Salah. People have made mistakes. And I get the whole, well, what about him? How come he's playing? The manager has to pick someone. Fucking hell, he can't just play Sabozlai on his own. Because if that's what you're talking about, who's playing well, it's really only him. You've got to play other players, you know. I get Canate's been awful, but who are you picking instead of him? Because Joe Gomez has not been able to play those games. The manager said he's having injections, so I get the Gakpo thing. I don't particularly want to watch him all the time, but he has also been dropped. He's found his way back in. Said before, I probably would have played Salah against Sunderland and Leeds. But if the manager makes those decisions, you've got to get on board with it. You've got to knuckle down, you've got to work hard, and you've got to fight for your place and work your way back in. And when you work your way back in, you've got to do your stuff. But what I don't like is all this making it about himself. And as I say, adding fuel to a very, very volatile situation.
How are you feeling about it?
Pretty much identical to that, to be perfectly honest. I don't like the timing of it either. I think if your relationship is broken down, is it broken down in the space of 7 days, 9 days, 10 days? How long is this? Because he didn't say this when we managed to concede 7 goals in 5 days at Anfield, which was 2 weeks ago and 10 days ago.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden he doesn't play in 3 games. Liverpool don't lose any of the 3, by the way. It's not good, obviously, but this is the longest Liverpool have gone without losing a game of football for nearly 3 months. This is the timing of it, just for me, is appalling in terms of what it says about him and his attitude to everything and how he's thinking about this. Liverpool haven't played particularly brilliantly the last 3 games, but they were playing worse before. Like, you know, we've had this thing where last season he was accommodated because his output was exceptional. His output's not been exceptional this season. The number of goals he's got, the number of assists he's got, the number of chances he's created, it's nowhere near what it was. So that makes sort of the sacrifices you have to make to accommodate him harder to do. And that's almost the point the manager's got to, whereby you think about, we handled the lack of defensive work last year because he was scoring goals, he was doing things. It's not look likely. Like PSV the other week, we had 27 shots, he has 1 of them. If you're having 1 shot in a 4-1 defeat, what purpose is he serving? Because he's clearly not helping us go backwards, he's not helping us go forwards either. So the decision to not play him, probably the only thing I disagree with Ian on there was I probably wouldn't have played him in any of the 3 games anyway. I haven't looked at any of the games and gone, I wish he was playing. And that's a little bit sad almost on my part, because I
really wished he was playing against Sunderland from the start.
But I was okay when the team came out. I probably felt that way at half time, and I wanted him to come on at half time,
Which he does do.
But when the team came out, I was like, okay, I've got, like, I didn't see any reason for it to be radically different from the previous Sunday, and I didn't see any reason for him to have started yesterday. Like, I looked at the team yesterday, and I broadly liked it. Didn't love it, because there's obviously I would like to see Ekatike and Isak, but I understand why that's not been possible. But I would have had that preference. But I wasn't looking at it and going, well, I wish he was playing, because I just think it makes the right back's life harder. I think it makes the midfielders' life harder, and the output just hasn't been there.
Do you think you should? I mean, I want to get onto the game, but I may as well do it now with you. Do you think you should have come on? The way the game plays out, I'm giving you the benefits of hindsight. I'm not giving you the where you were in the moment. I'm giving you the gift of hindsight. Do you think you should have come on?
No.
Okay.
Because we get the goal not long, another 5 minutes maybe. If Sabozlai hadn't got that 3rd, then maybe. But at the time, I just wasn't thinking that's what this needs, and I don't look at it now and think,
okay,
that's what it needs. Maybe that's harsh, maybe that's wrong. I don't know, but he's been a hard watch for the majority of the season, and ultimately, Liverpool haven't been winning games. The manager's job is to go and try and win games of football, both in the short term and the long term. He's getting off. He's going to the African Cup of Nations in a week. Yeah. He's not going to be here for ages. So why does the manager sort of have to go, well, I have to use him now and then not use him, instead of going, well, let's do it now. And to an extent, it's probably, I don't think he's been proven wrong to have done it. based on the last 3 games, to be honest.
Pete, he's always more emotional than people think, Salah. I think there is some sort of perception of him as though he is remarkably cool and cold because of the nature of his football. But I think he's A, loved playing for Liverpool, B, loved being part of this team. I think C, he loved leading this team last season. How do you feel about his comments in that context?
I think first of all, I do agree you shouldn't wash your dirty linen in public. So I think you just get that out of the way. But I also think that life's not black and white. I do think, like you've just said, he's very emotional. He's been one of the most emotional footballers since the death of Diogo Jota. So I think that's been very apparent. So you see him on that evening on the first game of the season against Bournemouth, where he's the tears on the pitch and so on. I think he's suffering from grief. I don't think this is a big personal agenda where people are saying he's making it all about him. I genuinely think he's going to leave the football club now. I think the fact that he comes up with the comments and he's saying about his mum coming over this week to basically this is the last time we'll be at Anfield. I don't see him in a Liverpool shirt after the AFCON. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but that's my genuine belief. I think he's deadly serious about it. I also think that what he said about he doesn't have to earn his place, I think it's been misinterpreted, in my opinion, because you also referenced Harry Kane, and what he was saying was sometimes you go through a bit of a bad patch and then you come good. But other footballers sometimes are afforded that time. Now, I can already hear the people online or whatever now shouting he's been playing all season, but I remember Michael Owen years ago going so many games without scoring a goal.
Drive me mad. And then and he'd score and then he'd say he proved his critics wrong.
Yeah.
So the critics were about those 10 games, mate.
Exactly. Absolutely. And I think that's what it is. I don't think he's saying I'm bigger than the football club or what I've done over the past few years is the reason why I should play for Liverpool forever. I also think he's looking at some of his teammates thinking, what's this about? Some of the performances are woeful. Kanate should not be in that side. And I take your point about Gomez can't play this or can't play that. But Alexis McAllister is another one. He didn't play yesterday. All right, fair enough. Someone can say that to me. But he's been absolutely abysmal in midfield this season. He's been shocking. I think that's one of the problems. I think Salah has been a casualty in the sense that the right-hand side's been decimated. I think he's had a different right-back nearly every game behind him. Even in games, he's had 3 different right-backs at various points. On the right-hand side of midfield is completely different. And up front is always different as well. If someone was saying to me now, you are playing Ekitike instead of Salah, I'd say, okay, Sam, because Ekitike is showing how much of a great signing he is. He's lightning quick, he's energetic, he's performing. But anyone else, I'm not really sure about it. And I think the thing with Mohamed Salah as well is that people are saying what earn his place. At this moment, it looks like a structural change. So if the structural change has happened, how can you earn your place if your place is now redundant? So it's like, how can you get back into the team? I would have played him this week because I think the 3 sides that we've played against have been really, really poor. I think if Salah plays this week, he scores, he's probably not having this conversation. When did he fall out with him? Yeah, you're right. I don't know. The only thing I can say is, so in my experience, and I spoke to Neil a little bit about this last night, is people will know that, like, I lost my sister last year, so it was last summer. And in that point in time, I think everyone, they don't really understand grief unless you're going through it. So in the workplace, so I'm not a footballer, so we can get that out the way. But on a human level, I can understand the criticism. So, for example, my sister was dying for 28 days in the hospital, but I turned up to work every day. So for me, I was like, I'm going to work, I'm doing everything possible for what I believe is right. And there was something about 6 months later, and this is just one incident. It was snowing, and for 2 days in a row, I was late because it took me 80 minutes to get there. And my line manager said to me, when did you set off? And it absolutely infuriated me. I didn't say anything, but inside I thought, how dare you, when I've given everything, when I've emotionally done all these things. So I think there's loads of that going on inside as well. So we can't sit here for the last few months and say the Diogo Jota death is affecting footballers. And we need to evaluate the situation and then say, actually, you're bang out of order. I think when you're grieving, you're very emotional. Your brain is wired differently and you've struggled to accept criticism, even if it's right at times.
I want to come back though, because what he does here is a player is going to have to sit next to Arne Slot at the press conference in Europe, and presumably they're going to be asked about it. Arne Slot and that player's going through something similar. Arne Slot, let's be clear about this, Arne Slot has had to work with this squad through the very thing that you described there, and work with these disparate individuals. You know, they don't all speak the same language as a first language. It's worth pointing that out. Nor does Arne Slot speak English as a first language. They're having to deal with all of this. And he may well have picked him on Tuesday. I'm not saying, maybe Salah knows when he says what he says, or I've been told I'm not playing any of the games before AFCON if possible. But it does give everyone else a problem, doesn't it, Pete? It gives whoever it is who sits next to Slot a problem. His teammates will be asked about it in the next mix zone that they come through. Slot will obviously be asked about it on Monday. Slot's got to pick a team. Does he take him? Does he put him on the bench? Do you know what I mean? The whole thing is, it does have these ramifications.
Oh, yeah, it certainly does, but I think the unique circumstances. So I think that this isn't a player that is, in my opinion, that's gone rogue and is. I'm going to use Salah's term. I don't think he's trying to throw anyone under a bus. I think he's genuinely going to leave the football club, and I think he's sort of having a bit of an emotional breakdown. He loves this football club. He's referenced the fact that I even remember earlier in the season that he walks out at Anfield and still thanks, like God, basically, of how lucky he is to play here. So his love for the football club is unquestionable. So I don't think it's that. I just think it's a heartbreaking situation at the end, and I think someone, if he's going to leave this football club this week, and I know it's not technically this week, but he is going to the AFCON, I think how to manage the situation now, someone needs to put his arm around, get the best out of the situation. And the thing is, we spoke in the summer, didn't we, that you've just said that they're all different individuals, they're all different nationalities, they're all different cultural backgrounds. So you can't judge people and say, well, you shouldn't be doing this and you shouldn't be doing that, because unity is strength, isn't it? And I think these footballers now, I don't know how many emergency meetings they've had now, but today
Not
would...
the man emergencies anymore, they're just meetings.
Yeah. This would be one where it's a bit of togetherness, and I hope Arne Slot, and I'm not slagging Arne Slot because I don't know, he might be the perfect man at the moment, but it does make you think of the uniqueness and the quality that Jurgen Klopp had. Someone like him now, bringing these footballers together, because I don't think this is a disciplinary process. I think it's like, how do we fix this situation? And I don't see Mohamed Salah staying at Liverpool. It's become untenable now. But at the same time, what can we do to rectify this situation in the short term?
It's about Pete says what he thinks is going to happen. I think what he possibly even wants to see happen at this point. What do you think will happen? What do you want to see happen?
I mean, it's hard to know what will happen. I mean, I think there's a chance that Salah and Slot both aren't here in January. That is a realistic possibility. You know, maybe Salah just kind of, wants a new challenge now. As I said, the manager's almost going game by game because of the nature of the results, and he'd have looked at the last week and thought Liverpool should, as a minimum, be getting 7. They're falling short of that. I mean, they should be getting 9, really. Let's be honest about it. They should be getting fucking 9 points against those 3 teams. But if they got 7, you might have gone, okay, we build from there. But to end up with 5 is, yeah, it's nowhere near good enough, and it's a bit of a familiar tale, to be honest, in terms of what we've seen. I just think on the Salah thing, listen, I get that people can get frustrated, and you never know what's going on behind closed doors, and we're not privy to that. We've got to say that. I don't know how he's been treated, and maybe Slot's had a real go at him, or he hasn't sat him down properly. So you have to caveat all of that with there's a bit of unknowing that we just can't understand, or we're not privy to. But Pete's point about unity, no, they are supposed to be a team. It's about the collective. I don't think individuals acting in that fashion, that doesn't feel like it's about the team. It feels like it's about, one person. And as I say, I've loved watching him play. He's been unbelievable. 250 fucking goals. It's unbelievable what he's done. And he's a superstar, and he will rightly go down as one of the old-timers. No doubt about it. He's right up there in the conversation with any player you care to name. Mohamed Salah's never far from your lips when you're talking about the greats. But there's just ways and means in terms of going about some of this. And I just don't think, back to the very start, I don't think it helps anyone. I don't think it helps the team. They're in a really, really tough spot at the minute. And as I say, the manager's...
I definitely know what you're going to say about them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Strap yourselves in. But I just don't feel this kind of does anyone any favours. And I think your point's right. Other people will now have to front this. And it just feels a little bit sad as well. If it does end up ending in this manner, that's incredibly sad for a player who's done what he's done. And as I say, in terms of what I expect to see happen now, I think it's really hard because, as I say, I think the manager's massively under it to see whether he can navigate the next few weeks. And I'm not quite sure he can turn this around. I think what is interesting for me, if you have got a senior player coming out and saying this, I think there's a strong chance that maybe one or two others aren't feeling it as well. Now, that doesn't mean anyone else is going to come out and say it, because I think, back to the point, you keep your counsel a little bit. But I think there will probably be others who are just maybe not enjoying life at the minute. There's a couple of reports around, one or two senior pros suddenly not really enjoying it under Slot as much as they were the previous season. And that can happen with results when they go badly. Yeah. So maybe he's not acting alone, but he's become the voice of it. But again, it's back to what's in the benefit of the collective. And I just never feel this type of thing ever really suits the whole team.
Phil, this is, there are obviously unique circumstances around this, but this has happened before in football, and this has happened before at Liverpool. There's stories now that are almost recounted with a certain amount of humour around them about St John going absolutely mad at Shankly because of the size of the Christmas turkey he got given. And he thought it was symbolic of where he was then in the pecking order, and says to him supposedly, I gave everything for you. I gave you everything, and this is the way you treat me. The Roger Hunt, back when no one got subbed, Roger Hunt got subbed and had a tantrum on the sidelines. Phil Thompson ends up having a real moment going back. And I'm talking about these lads who won league titles, who won big trophies, big moments in Liverpool's history. They may feel like it all comes from yesterday, but it's the same emotion, I think. So how do you feel this gets resolved? Does it get resolved? Can it get resolved? Is the resolution simply the direction of travel that Pete suggests, or is there a way back for anyone here?
Feels like not. Like, in terms of, what does the manager look like if he picks him on Tuesday now? I think he looks really weak if he picks him on Tuesday, because it makes it look like he's picked him because he's had a complaint. And that pretty much wouldn't be why he's picked him. He's picked him because, they decide the teams and decide what they're going to do and plan around it. It's not as simple as him sitting down. He's not sitting down tomorrow morning and going, right, who's playing against Inter Milan? It's just not how it works. We all know enough about this to know that's not how it works. So does that mean he's in the team? Does it mean he's not in the team? But either way, if he doesn't pick him, it looks like he's doubling down on it. If he does pick him, he looks weak. I just don't think that's it. And that's part of the reason I don't like it, is the position he's put the manager in terms of what he's supposed to do. And it's then really difficult for him. It sort of does feel like this might be the end. But at the same time, this isn't the first time Salah's done this type of thing either. They did it just over a year ago. We're top of the league. We're about 8 points clear. We've won 3-2 at Southampton. He scores a late penalty to win the game. And after the game, it's not, Liverpool are going towards the title. We're talking about whether Mohamed Salah's getting a new contract or not, like it was the single most important thing in the world at the time, and it wasn't. Liverpool were trying to win the league title, and the focus was, where am I playing next season? I didn't particularly like that then, and I certainly don't like this now either. And it does feel a bit like he sort of knows, and it's like it might be like an exit strategy to say, it's not on me. I'm not going to Saudi Arabia because they're paying me loads of money. I'm going because I'm not wanted, and it's run its course.
To all three of your points, though, one of the things that has to happen is someone's got to buy him.
Yeah.
Someone's got to put an offer down on the table that Liverpool find acceptable. That's what I think could well be a difficult part of all of this.
Could also already be done. You don't know.
Yeah, I think it might be already done. And I think that's why he's come out in the way he has, because I just think there is a finality about what he said. And I think he's come to terms with it. And I think that's the only motive, really. I think
he says it yesterday if we win.
No,
doesn't 100%.
I do. I think
they said after Southampton, for instance, on that point. It's different to say it.
I honestly think that he knows. This is where I don't like it. Like, it almost became about him versus the manager, and that's how it's been taken by lots of fans, certainly online. And I just think he sensed there was a vulnerability there, having thrown away 2 goals and it ends up 3-3. He knows the manager's under pressure, and as I say, I've got no problem with the manager being under pressure, because if results aren't good enough, you will be under pressure managing this club. That's the way it goes. But I don't think pouring on that helps anyone. And that's where I didn't like it.
Do you think he might have said it anyway?
I think he says it anyway. And I think where he says someone in the club wants me out, I think he's probably right, because he's on a lot of money. And now, in hindsight, they're looking at these signings And Mohamed Salah's not the future. They have to make Florian Wirtz work. They need to make Isak work. I mean, Slot's only come out recently and said there's an Isak plan. Ekitike's got to work. And these footballers don't work with Mohamed Salah in the team. It doesn't make sense. So even though I love Mohamed Salah and I'm devastated with how it's ending, if I can see the future with Liverpool now, it's better to have the younger players than it is with Salah. And I think the board will be looking at that themselves, thinking we get these wages off and we sign a player like Semenyo in the January window and things like that to move on. I do think that, and I don't think he's trying to get Slot to sack, because I think he's accepted that he's going. I think that's it. I think it's done.
All right, the game as well. I'm infuriated by the way it ends up being. For me, it's just as simple as before and after Konate. And that it feels really reductive, but I thought Liverpool not played so well. I thought it looked like a professional performance. It looked to me like exactly what a European, a Champions League club does when they go away to an intense ground, but a newly promoted side. They felt to me like they controlled the first half. They felt to me like they took advantage of the mistake. That's the right thing to do. Wait, they'll give you one. They give them one. Then they play well to get the second one. Hit them straight away 2-0. Honestly, I thought it was about as professional a performance as Liverpool have put in all season, and that's with due respect to the performances against Arsenal and Real Madrid. They're different. This to me was proper grown-up football from the Reds, and then that mistake.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think, they were, wouldn't say they were scintillating in the first half. There was nothing kind of, too flashy about it. I don't think they were testing the keeper that much, if I remember rightly. Can't remember that many on target. Jones hits the bar and stuff, but obviously that's off target.
One was probably when Gakpo puts the ball. Well, he's in the position to put the ball across, doesn't quite. That's probably the best.
Yeah. But Liverpool, you'd say that they were knocking, and they were certainly the better team by a distance. Better team by a distance. Look comfortable. Get the early 1 second half, and then when it goes 2-0, you'd like to think a serious football team just banks that, and then it ends there. Nothing else has to fucking happen. Nothing else has to happen in the game. You can just manage it. You can be grown up about it and just see that out. But we know this current version is not really capable of doing that. We've seen it time and time again, and it just takes one crazy decision to send the game into a bit of a spiral, and that's what it is. It's a mad decision. I've watched that back. Liverpool have got 9 players in their own box. They're comfortable. They are absolutely comfortable. No one needs to dive in. It is a penalty. When I first saw it, I thought, I'm not sure. When you see it again, he takes him out, the ball's still in play. There's absolutely zero need to go to ground. And this is a player who continually, it's almost self-sabotage. He's just shooting himself in the face every single time. It's painful. And I see loads of people saying, how's he still playing? I get that, because the frustration is you're watching him just, do the same things over and over again, slightly different, but ultimately costing Liverpool points. But there's been no one to really take his place. And this is where you can come back to the recruitment in the summer. And I know everyone loved the fact that they were buying loads of players. But I said it at the time, and I'll say it again, not getting that centre-half in was massive. It was fucking massive. And that's got to be on someone's head, that. And it probably isn't the manager's, because it's not his responsibility to buy the players. Someone has massively fucked up there. They had to get a centre-half in, and it is come back to haunt them. Because at the minute, maybe you can drop Joe Gomez in every now and again at centre-half, but we know that's not sustainable. We know that isn't going to be a sustainable thing, and you're back to then maybe put midfielders there. But at the minute, that one mistake, and then you can go from there. You can have a little conversation about subs and all that. I get it, but it starts there. It starts with that mistake.
I hate it takes the good performance away. To be dead honest, it takes the good performance away of a number of players. Ekitike, Bradley, Szoboszlai, Jones. This has been a really solid, strong Liverpool performance until the 17-minute mark. Paddy, who's filming this, actually dropped. He's a blue. He dropped off. So he was watching it, he fell asleep, and it was 2-0. And he woke up and he couldn't believe it, because he was just sort of thought, well, it almost got boring, he was saying. And that was the point, is that Liverpool were actually boring their way to a solid away win. And then there's this mistake. And I don't want to be there where you'd end up repeatedly going back into one player. I feel like I've talked about Konate on shows like this, on other shows for weeks, but so often it has been him, and the mistakes are shockingly immature given all his experience.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's an absolute disgraceful decision what he's done. It just looked... I don't know what he's thinking. I've watched it so many times, and I don't know if the slow motion makes it even worse, but it's like, it just seems so lazy and lackadaisical. I don't know what he's thinking. I don't know what's happened to his form, because I always think that he was always prone to mistake anyway. I think on his day, he's one of the best one-on-one defenders in Europe, and I think that's why Jurgen Klopp signed him, because of Liverpool like to play a high line, and him and Virtual were sensational at times, but his footballing ability at times and his decision making, and once someone gets in his head, and once he gets in his own head, he's a bit of a shambles. And if you remember at the end of Jurgen Klopp's tenure, he was dropped, wasn't he? And Conte come in. So I think that even with all that in mind, I don't know what has happened to him this season, because he was obviously much better last season. He's just completely...
He's a league-winning centre.
He's a league-winning centre-half.
I don't think that makes it worse.
He's nowhere near as bad as he's showing, but each week he's finding new ways to surprise you. But Liverpool, they wasn't great yesterday. The analysis, what you're saying there, we were boring ourselves through it. I thought we were so in control. The first half, there was no penetration really, apart from that shot that you said with Curtis Jones. But we were so in control, and it was nice little passing, and they'd be growing in confidence. And then the second half comes and you score 2 goals. Ekitike was on it like a rash, wasn't he? He was lightning quick. For me, just before the Konate thing though, I'm going to criticise the manager. I don't know why you make defensive substitutions. I think you're 2-0 up. It was so comfortable. Leeds, I don't even remember them having really a shot on target.
Bradley probably didn't have 90 minutes in him. That's my one thing.
And he's
Bradley,
been booked as
and
well.
he's on a yellow. So I think the Bradley one made sense to me.
Yeah.
I didn't understand that taking off of Viet, and I thought that we did actually, in the brief period you actually saw when it was 2-0, look a little bit less in control of matches.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just don't think you've then got you haven't got that outlet as much. For me, I just think you keep your attacking players on the pitch, and if you're going to take your Virts off, you bring on someone who's capable then of stretching the play. And for me, it's the opportunity then to say, well, you put maybe Ekitike on the left and Isak central, and see how it looks when you're 2-0 up and you're so comfortable, and you're playing Leeds, who are 17th in the league. And listen, I know that they beat Chelsea in the week, and I know that it's a tough place to go at 5:30, and the atmosphere is this, but it wasn't like that, and the atmosphere wasn't good until we allowed that to happen. So for me, I think, yeah, you've got to put the blame in Konate, but for me, just before that as well, I wasn't happy with the manager.
I think I actually, that's all pretty fair from Pete, from me, and you were there, Phil. Obviously, you can hear it on the telly. For me, Liverpool had done the job. They'd done the job. They took the sting out of Ellen Road, and then he does that. Even in a way, the long periods, the idea of the overturn, as much as anything else, because suddenly all hell breaks loose. Ellen Road is absolutely a furnace after it goes 2-1, because they sense Liverpool's vulnerability, and that's what that one decision does to the whole side.
Oh, 100%. The ground was flat. They'd basically gone, oh, well, this is a defeat.
We won a midweek.
We won in midweek. We did well at Man City last week. It's all right. It's fine. We lose 2-0. Who cares? Nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing bad that we'll remember about today at the end of the season. And then I think he's tried to block a cross, has he? A cross that didn't even come.
Yep.
And never even looked like coming. That's the only logical thing I can think he's tried to do. But why? Like, it is so frustrating, because the decisions, I think, were probably, whether they were right or wrong, would probably just have been proven irrelevant.
Yeah.
So, and that's why I find it really hard to sort of analyse any decisions the manager made, either before or after, because they shouldn't have mattered to the outcome of the match, because it is so brainless and stupid what he's done. When it's, what's he going to do? He's not going to hurt you. Yeah. It's not going to hurt you. He set the house on fire trying to put the washing machine on.
Adam Mealy said on the post-match about maybe the subs came a little bit, maybe 10 minutes early or something like that. And I felt that at the time, but again, you know, I think the Bradley one, he was probably never going to do 90, and the booking, which is a stupid booking, by the way, that does put him under a little bit of pressure. But also, again, back to the unknown, we don't know where Bates was. You know, did he have much more in the tank? I'm not too sure. He looked like he might have been blown a little bit. I think, ideally, I'd have done similar to you. I'd have kept him on if that was possible. But I don't know what the situation is.
But I'm concerned with that, because all our signings this season can't play 90 minutes. So that's all we have to say. Yeah, they get taken off. They can't play 3 games in a week, and they can't play 90 minutes. Every game I see Ekitike is taken off. Isak's taken off. Now you're saying Vert, and I'm not blaming you.
I don't know.
I'm just like, well,
it just looks like towards the end of the games, he's not finishing that many games, and I think there's a sense that maybe he just tires a little bit. I think it's just into the league, physicality.
The manager also thinks he's going to pick him on Tuesday.
I might well be doing that as well. Yeah.
Is there also an idea that the manager realises he didn't do enough of it last year?
Yeah, maybe.
And then had to live March. And he's now gone, I need them fresh and mad. And his solution to that is by doing these things that we're looking at and going, I don't think that's a great idea. And he's now probably doing too much. He's gone, maybe gone too far the other way, and he's a bit in his own head.
I think he is doing too much, because I think that if you think about one of the biggest problems that any neutral, any basic football fan says all season is the lack of continuity in this team, because you brought in all these new players. The 5 substitution rule can be useful, but if you make 5 substitutions, you've changed literally
half the team. Yeah.
And it's then, well, why are we doing it? I just think there's too much tinkering. It doesn't make sense to me.
You know what, for me, like, I think, and maybe this is where people are on the manager and stuff, and as I say, I've given him a bit of a tough time in recent weeks because I think he's got a lot wrong, but I think there's a scenario where if Karate just doesn't do what he does, as you said, nothing else happens, and people go, well, the right thing was just to close the game down. You're bringing on slightly more defensive players, and a grown-up football team does see it out. If Liverpool have brought on more attackers and then they started conceding goals, he'd have got battered for that as well. So some of this it can be fine margin stuff. So I understand how you land where he lands. I probably wouldn't have done it. I probably would have looked for Ver to stay on a little bit longer, but I can kind of see where he might have been coming from, if that makes sense.
Phil, for me, this, again, it's so infuriating because Liverpool go to the cliched, difficult place to go, big atmosphere, Saturday night at 5:30. They take the sting out of it. That's something they've been failing to do. Liverpool did well against high balls, really well against high balls all the way through the match. That's something they've been struggling to do. Dominated against a back 3. Up until the Konate issue, they've done all right with set pieces. They go on and concede last minute with a set piece. I know that, but the game's in a different place. The thing was, we'd be talking about all these things as positives. All these things as this is what he did. Everyone would be talking about them as positives. Your Sky Saturday night coverage would actually get a bit dull afterwards, because it would be Liverpool just rocked up to Ellen Road and did the thing that this side's meant to do when it goes to Ellen Road. Nothing in the post for you. All those things, high balls, back 3, take the sting out of it. Liverpool dealt with all of those things, and yet they still end up not getting the 3 points.
Yeah, for 65, 70 minutes.
70 minutes.
About 70 minutes.
70 minutes.
Yeah. It was not necessarily what you wanted, but at that point, before he slides in, you were like, great, I've enjoyed this. We look like a cohesive football team as well. I think that was an important part of it.
Yeah, we got to
half time, and I was saying this at half time. It was 0-0, and I went, it's been nice to watch what looks like a cohesive football team play 45 minutes of football.
Yeah.
It was nice. It was genuinely nice to see. And then you come on and get the 2 goals straight after half time, and you're like, brilliant. Superb. This is exactly what I wanted. This is what I wanted. 20 minutes then passes. Nothing happens. They don't have chances. I don't remember, outside of their goals, I don't remember the goalkeeper doing anything of real note. There was there's a few pot shots and stuff like that, and he's had to make some saves, but I don't think there was anything where he was under pressure. They weren't peppering our goal. To be honest, even the second goal comes that quickly as well, that it's not, and the way the first goal is, it's almost not even an implosion in some ways, because like, I think of implosion, for example, we were 3-0 up at Southampton once in about 25 years ago and drew 3-3. That's an implosion. It was only really 1 goal when you think about it in terms of what the rest of the team have had to do, because the penalty is so unbelievably stupid.
Yeah.
And that's why it's frustrating. It's not, because it looks like one of these implosions that we've seen in recent weeks, but I don't think it was. And then they go back and go up the other end and score.
And it's a good goal.
And it's a great goal. The dummy by McAllister is fantastic. The finish is excellent. The move is really good. Everything about it is what you want to see. But it shouldn't have mattered. I had no interest in watching that 3rd goal, because I've got no interest in their first goal and their second goal. And the first goal we've conceded 3 goals because we've conceded 1. If we don't concede that 1, it is the most 2-0 game of football I think I've ever seen in my life. Their players had gave up.
That's what we needed.
The players had given up. The crowd had given up. Everything.
What we needed.
It was done. It was finished, and it's driven me around the bend, that penalty.
I think that's why I'm not getting too kind of bogged down with the subs, because I think that probably does play out if people don't do the stupid thing and give the penalty away. But where I do find myself a bit frustrated is when it does go to 2-1. You want the grown-ups to take over and just go, right, nothing fucking happens now, boys. Just nothing happens. We make sure this does not go to 2-2. And whatever we have to do, you're playing for touch, whatever it is, giving fouls away. But it's almost 2-2 immediately. Yeah. And it's back 2. They can't handle anything going wrong. Where's the resilience? They can't handle it. And then I don't think there's a person, certainly I know, when it is 2-2 or when it goes 3-2 to Liverpool and 9 minutes go up, you're thinking it's going 3-3 here. There's not a fucking chance that you see this out. You cannot, and I think Neville said it on commentary, and where it is quite damning, you can't fucking trust them. You can't trust them at any given moment to be doing the right things at the right times. And by the way, we can talk about the first goal in Canati. He's not fucking great for the second one. And I haven't seen the third one back, but at the time he does duck. Now he might not have got there anyway, but he does duck. And Gravenberg's not great for it, by the way, either. Not the first time he's done that at corners this season. And Curtis Jones, for all his great play for 70 minutes, lets the lad walk past him for the second. Things like that should not be happening. And that's where I am getting frustrated with a group of them, or a number of them, where they can help themselves a little bit more. Yes, there's a bit of adversity. You lose the goal. We can all batter Canati, and rightly so, because it's mad what he does. But just fucking hell, you're away at Leeds, 16th, 17th best team in the league. It can be uncomfortable, but just stand up for a little bit, 5-10 minutes. Fuck all happens here, boys, and we'll see the game out. Maybe we get the third on the break and we kill them again. But no, they're not capable.
Totally agree. I just can't believe. I know what you're saying. I agree with Phil as well, in the sense when he's saying before that if you don't concede the first, you don't concede the other two. And I get it, and it wasn't like an implosion. You made me think when I was listening to you. It wasn't like an implosion like you've seen in the past, but we still find ourselves conceding 3, and that's 24 this season that we conceded. And I haven't done the maths of what that ends up at the end of the season if it continues at that rate, but it's a lot. For me, the team, if you've seen some improvement this week, but we've got to put into the fact that we also played Forest the week before. So in 4 games against teams you should be beating at the bottom of the league, we've got 5 points. We conceded quite a few goals, and even though we've seen some improvement this week, they are against teams that we should have done that anyway. I am struggling here to think how this team is not broken, because even when we look like we were doing all right yesterday, we still concede 3. So where'd you go from here? Like, for example, in the next few games over the Christmas period, you said, Ian, that you don't trust this side. I don't know. They don't trust each other. I don't know how this team stops conceding goals. So for me, something seriously wrong, and I don't know how much longer the manager survives.
I'm Phil with it. One of the things that I took from it was immediately after the game, before even Salah said anything to a microphone, I was saying that's no bus back. That is no bus back, babe. Honestly, imagine being on that. You would be, if you're a couple of those players, you would be.
I'd have been getting an Uber on the go, mate. I'm not getting on that bus.
Yeah, you'd have been
going on my own.
Yeah, you'd have been up. Honestly, full Peter Reid 86 final. 86 final. I'm getting fines. I'm like, great, I'll pay it.
How much? That's my checkbook.
There is.
I mean, a few of them should have been walking back anyway, in fairness. Well, but, you know, there is
that. Some of these performances, just to clarify...
There's the broken team thing, though.
Yeah, it's a broken team. I just think that it's not all on the manager. I know that. Like, when you can't mitigate some of these mistakes that someone like Kanate is making, or Curtis Jones not making that run after that big interview that he done last week. But at the end of the day, it just keeps happening. Yeah. And I just think...
We're making everything so hard. I mean, you've seen, like, obviously, you know, Forest go to Everton and get dispatched comfortably. You know, Sunderland go to City and get dispatched. And I know every game's different and weeks are different.
You've scored no goal in 2 minutes.
I know.
And I'm like, can someone come to Anfield and score no goal in 2 minutes, please?
Also,
fucking hell.
It's also back to, boys, no fucking excuses.
I know.
We can keep talking ourselves into, but this is hard, isn't it? Oh, but what about that? Oh, and the goalie's great. And fuck off.
No, I don't think
You're the champions.
Yeah.
Go and deal with what's in front of you. We're talking about teams at the bottom of the league who are fighting relegation. So I get it, but I can't have that either. I can't have these like little, but they scored their own goal for them. So fucking what? Just go and deal with Sunderland, go and deal with Forest. You're at home. Do you know what I mean?
I just struggle when people bring up things that happen in the Hill Dickinson. Not a positive. That's all, Ian. That's all it is. That's all it is. No, I think I'm with this 100%. Yeah. I've found, and earlier in the season when, for instance, we were talking about being surprised by X or surprised by Y. The thing is, though, and this is why yesterday, Phil, is so infuriating, is Liverpool weren't surprised. Liverpool had a plan. Liverpool looked at Calvert-Lewin and went, this is how we're going to deal with you. The number of times, for instance, Van Dijk comes a long way to challenge him for the header, but Gravenberch goes and fills the space that Van Dijk's left. Do you know why, lads? Because we worked on something. And it's not complicated. He wants to flick it on so someone else goes and plays centre-back when he pulls the centre-back. Liverpool had done it. They've done the hard part. And yet we're still sat here. And this is where you just end up feeling like you said before, feeling like you are going to lose your fucking mind.
They are brittle confidence-wise in terms of where they are at. So do you know what would be nice? Stop doing things that make the confidence levels even worse. Which is, I feel like that's been a massive theme of the season. The amount of times, and you know, it is, a lot of it has been Canate. Like Forest, for example, we start reasonably well, and then he somehow manages to give a corner away from 40 yards away from his own goal.
Yeah.
Then it's 1-0, and any sort of
Any positives gone?
any positive went out the window, and it's happening too much. Whereby there are some positives at times. It's not. We aren't going onto a football pitch every week for 3 or 4 months and being terrible. That is not what's been happening. That's not to say that we've been playing well all the time, or even a bit of the time. But there've been games where you're watching it and go, well, I quite like this and I quite like that, and then someone will do something incredibly stupid, and any of the good stuff has gone out the window. And that is what you need to change. And I don't even know how do you change that. Like, is that a thing a manager can change? Like, can a manager? Would a different manager stop Canate doing something differently there, controlling the ball and going out for a throw? And I'm just very conflicted about what to think of where we go from here.
Is what happened in the summer a bigger thing though? Like it's there's a thing there was a situation in Ajax, I think it was in 2018, where the footballer had a heart attack and he ended up getting brain damaged. And there's loads of parallels with that situation and what's happened here with Liverpool. Is that Ajax were brilliant the season before, and then he started the season all right. Liverpool done the same, but then as the months went by, the grief and what the footballers went through, they just went on a losing streak, and they couldn't get out of that rut. And it seems very the same now with Liverpool. I was speaking to a Dutch journalist last week about it, and the only situation that changed in the end was the manager. And it's not the fact that I'm saying, well, Arne Slot needs to go because he's this, that, or the other. Maybe the situation in the summer has just set him up to fail, because like you can't explain Kanate's performances. I said before that it's disgraceful. It is, but at the same time, when there's footballers all over the pitch just not doing their jobs and making basic errors week in, week out, sometimes then the voice in the dressing room, it just isn't working. Whatever's doing, the tactics not working or whatever it is, every week it just seems to be getting worse. And again, we're talking about a good performance for 70 minutes, but then we find new ways to concede 3 goals. So at some point, I don't know, someone needs to look at this.
This is where
you used to concede 3 goals.
this is where, you know, at some point, if results continue in this fashion, it does become untenable for the manager, whether you like him or not. There will come a point, and I've said on these shows, you know, I'd like him to be given the opportunity to put it right. But if results keep going against him, you know, that will be just taken out of his hands. You know, there's no other way to look at it. You know, Liverpool can't keep not winning games or losing games. I think if you are going to pull the trigger, though, you've got to have a few things like lined up, and Liverpool will be, you know, negligent if they're not, you know, having those discussions now about who could come in. But that also brings its complications as well. You know, people will say, well, what about Areola? What about Glasner? Well, both good managers, yeah, but that's a fucking step up, by the way. That's a step up to Liverpool Football Club and where they're managing. So,
and also, if you're bringing them in, you're not bringing them in on an interim basis.
Yeah.
You don't get to change it again next summer.
So, but also, like, there'll be names abroad, I get it, yeah, who could come in and do that. And I'm not saying you keep a manager because you've got no one else. I understand, as I say, it'll come up to a point where you've got to make a decision. But you have got to get the next bit right, if there is a next bit, because if you get that bit wrong, that can set you back years. We've seen it with Manchester United. So if you get that bit wrong, you can fuck yourselves even further. So it does need a bit of thinking through. You can't just say, get rid of him and anyone else will do, which I've seen some people say, I'll take anyone. No, it can't be that. There's got to be a fucking plan, and there's got to be a strategy in place that sees, you know, either someone coming straight away on a short-term basis, but who is that? And are they going to be qualified to do much better? Now, I know it's bad at the minute, so maybe anyone could kind of get them to raise the game for a few weeks. But over a long period of time, what does that look like? So this does need thinking through. So I understand the reaction will be, well, he's got to go. And as I said, if results continue, he will have to go, because at Liverpool Football Club, you have to deliver certain performances. And what we've seen recently is nowhere near good enough. He will know that. The expectation, rightly so, at this club is massive. And he knows that. And there'll come a time where, you know, it can't go on any longer.
You can't spend all that.
And you can't spend all that money. And listen, you can talk about unbalanced squads, and I think it is unbalanced. But at the same time, should he be getting more out of them? Absolutely. Of course he should. And he'll know that as well. And some of the players could be doing a little bit more. But if there is a next thing they've got to make sure they get that bit right. It can't just be, well, we'll go and get anyone because anyone's better than what we've got. This is still a manager that's won a league. He's won a league title. That comes with respect. You've got to respect that. Whether you like it or not, he's delivered that. There's not many of them about.
I don't think you're getting a proper successor halfway through a season.
No,
There's not currently a Klopp set off.
Yeah, so what they have to then weigh up is, can we get through it with what we've got now and wait till the summer? Possibly. But as I say, there will come a point where it just gets too bad. And Pete's point around, players in the dressing room, not listening to him. If it gets to that point where they're no longer having him, unfortunately, that's when a decision will have to be made, because you can't have a dressing room in that manner. Do you know what I mean? At some point, if his messages are no longer landing and the players want to change, whether you like that or not, that will spark something. Something will have to change. But as I say, the powers that be, the suits, they've got to be thinking this through. They've got to get that next bit right, because that is really, really important, because otherwise you can find yourself stagnating. We've all seen what's happened to Manchester United by going from one bad decision to another. It's really, really important to get the next bit right.
Yeah, I totally agree. Just I won't add too much more to it, other than the fact that because it's not his fault that all that money was spent, but we need to qualify for the Champions League, and I think that's what the Liverpool board will be looking at. And
of course they will.
That is imperative. It's at this moment, the form that we're on, you wouldn't back us to qualify for the Champions League, and over the next couple of weeks, they're going to make a decision about that. I think in the interim, I think you'd have to bring in someone with a character that would make the place a little bit more upbeat and a little bit more happier is probably the wrong phrase if people are suffering in that dressing room and things like that. But I just think I've seen signs where I'm not entirely sure that the players are completely listening to him at times when I'm watching them in the game. When there was a point the other week, Curtis Jones was at right back, and for this final 5 minutes before he was taken off, he was playing left wing. And I see Virgil van Dijk going up front every game, and when we're in desperate need of a goal. I don't think that's management instruction. I think players are just taking it upon themselves to do mad things in the game, and there's a lack of management instruction or listening to the management instruction at times. I've already seen it a little bit, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm making the inference wrong, but I've already seen signs of it, and for me, he hasn't got much long left if the results don't improve. I just can't see it.
The only sort of thing I say with that is that we don't really know what these footballers look like when they're losing, in terms of we haven't really had this before. So in terms of the decisions they're making, how are they? Is it because they're not listening, or because they feel that that's the best way of doing it? But it wasn't the same as this, though, was it?
I think it's not that far away. I think that
we weren't going on long runs of. We basically we feel like we win a game and then and then we'd be bad for 2 weeks, but then we win again. Whereas this is just basically three. Did, but this is but I mean before that we had.
Yeah, I know.
This is just different in terms of 3 weeks of having to 3 months pretty much of having to deal with constant adversity, and that's when you are in that position, it's not a position of footballers at this level used to being in. So saying they're reacting this way, I think we just don't really know if it's because
I don't.
That's what.
Yeah, I don't know, and we all don't know really. But I do see a lot of forwards on at the end of the game. And then when you've got a lot of forwards, and then your defenders would also then become forwards, it just doesn't look like a plan to me.
I agree with you.
All right, here's John Gibbons with James Pearce.
It is John Gibbons, and I'm delighted to be joined in our studio by James Pearce, author of Walk On. Your first book, James, I was surprised when I saw that. I feel like you must have done one over the years, but first one?
First proper one. Yeah, there was, The Athletic brought one out when we won the league in 2019-20. But that was like a collection of articles that had been published over the course of the season. So didn't really feel like I could claim that one, because it was like, it wasn't really writing a book, because it was kind of like they put the day job into a book at the end of the season. So yeah, this was like kind of the first time when kind of bit the bullet and went for it. I've had a few opportunities to do them in recent years, and just always thought, how on earth I'm going to find the time with work and home life and everything else. But yeah, it just felt like such a kind of remarkable period in Liverpool's history with the transition from one era to another, that I thought, yeah, why not? Let's go for it.
Well, I really enjoyed it. And one of the things that I enjoyed was there's things that you forget, and there's things that you remember almost kind of falsely, really, that reliving them reminds you of certain things. And the thing that jumped out for me was the team is struggling at the moment, and there's a lot of things that are going wrong. And I've seen a few people say, like, oh, this is Arne Slot's first challenge, or this is Arne Slot's first bit of adversity. And listen, there's a lot of challenges at the moment. But rereading the book, you're reminded that actually he had a lot to come through, not least following Jurgen himself. And quite a lot, has been made out since saying, oh, it was easy, coming in with Jurgen's team. But at the time, no one was saying that. It's like, how's he going to fill these massive shoes?
Exactly. And I think there is a lot of revisionism that's gone on in recent months because, obviously standards have dropped off so alarmingly. But yeah, the idea that all he had to do was turn up and say, well, just go out and do whatever Jurgen used to tell you to do, is massively unfair because, as you said, it was, when you rewind to when Jurgen, dropped his kind of public bombshell in January 2024 that he'd be stepping down at the end of the season. Of course, the owners had known for a couple of months, but everyone I spoke to, I'm sure it was the same for you, there was this real sense of trepidation, like, how on earth, what is the future going to hold without this guy, probably the most transformative figure in Liverpool's history since Bill Shankly, in terms of where the club was at when he came in and where they were at when he left. And, and I'm sure as well, we all had rival fans rubbing their hands with glee, thinking, well, that's it.
I remember a Villa fan telling me we were going to finish 8th.
Exactly. So, that was the context of it. And then, of course, it was a summer when, very little happened in the transfer market. The biggest thing was actually missing out on Zubimendi. And I remember personally at the time, I felt, that could really come back and bite Liverpool, like not buying a specialist holding midfielder. So then, in that context, it was a huge challenge that he took on. And that was part of the attraction for me in terms of writing the book, was trying to explain kind of the context around that and how Liverpool handled it, because it obviously goes a lot deeper than just, who are we going to get to replace Jurgen? It was very much, right, we need to rebuild the entire executive structure of the club, right from, the FSG's determination to bring back Michael Edwards' determination to bring in Richard Hughes, of course, Julian Ward coming back as FSG technical director, and then going down the head coach route rather than manager. Because, I think 2 reasons in terms of that was, one, it was going to be impossible to find another Jurgen Klopp, someone who was that kind of like force of nature with responsibilities across the whole, every element of the club really. And also a feeling that actually probably even if there was, that's not a healthy way of doing things. So we get the guy that we believe is the best one around to develop talent. And Slot did that last season. I don't think anything that's happened this season so far, kind of knocks down in any way what he did, because what he did with Gravenberch, what he did with Luis Diaz, Gakpo was so much improved. You could always go through the team. Kanate wasn't even in, he was behind Kwanzaa in the pecking order before towards the end of the Klopp era. Szoboszlai had lost his way a little bit. So these players were rejuvenated by his methods.
You mentioned there the complete overhaul, not just the manager, but above him, but also he needed to bring a whole new team in. He probably would have wanted to anyway, but with Jurgen, everyone else sort of left from sort of Pep Linders down. And so, he had to come in and immediately gel with a sporting director. There was Michael Edwards sort of above him and as well, but also putting his team together. And I was reminded in the book that he didn't get everyone he wanted. There was a guy who didn't get a work permit. And so he ends up with Johnny Heitinga almost kind of by accident. And that ended up really well. And Heitinga sort of moves on to Ajax. But even sort of that process, it was just a reminder that just how many jobs they advertised for a set piece coach and we were able to get one, so I had to sort of move people around. There was a lot to do that summer.
Yeah, there was. And I think it's interesting as well that they wanted to get the balance right between, there were certain appointments that they would let him bring in people with him, obviously Sipka Hulshoff and Ruben Peters, the 2 most high profile, but they also wanted, it not just to be people that he'd worked with previously, because they felt there would be, positives to gain from bringing in fresh voices and experts that, Michael Edwards and Richard Hughes felt could enhance what was already there with the package that Arne Slot was bringing in. So, Johnny Heitinga was obviously, a key part of that as well. But it was, it was one of the interesting things I felt speaking to people for the book was kind of there was almost like a reset in terms of the culture at the AXA training centre as well, in terms of kind of empowering more people in their particular field to kind of especially kind of on the sports science and the medical side. John Power was a really important figure in that as well. And kind of like the kind of the way of doing things was altered in terms of, rather than having just one big personality, it was like, well, actually, you put faith and trust in experts in their particular field, and it what followed surpassed all of our expectations, didn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Another thing in terms of, I'll keep going back to this idea of adversity and this being Slot's first, period of it. The contract situation, which loomed really large. You go into that in quite a lot of detail. I remember on Anfield Wrap shows in September and October, people saying, well, this needs to be sorted or it's going to hang over the club. And then other people saying, oh, if it's not sorted by January the 1st, players are going to start, announcing their leave. And it was a huge thing. And it's, as I say, kind of gets forgotten about now, not least because Virgil Mo obviously ended up staying, Trent didn't, but it wasn't announced to the end. But that was really seen as something that could derail Liverpool's season, but it didn't. And I think, obviously, the players themselves deserve a lot of credit for that, but also Slot, how he handled it. He was asked about it every week, and he always seemed like he was in control of not necessarily the contract situation, but how it was going to affect the team, and it was really impressive.
Yeah, and it was such a big theme throughout last season. That's why I felt kind of it's important to devote an entire chapter to it, really, and try and tell the kind of stories behind those negotiations and what went on behind closed doors. Because it did dominate almost every press conference from kind of August to April when Virgil and Mo finally signed. And I think from speaking to people involved in those kind of sagas, certainly those on the player side of things really appreciated the way that Slot dealt with it, because he did a very good job at not creating unwanted headlines. Quite often used a bit of humour here and there just to try and diffuse things. I remember I was there when obviously Mo spoke to a few of us outside St Mary's when Liverpool beat Southampton, and you knew he had something he wanted to get off his chest when he decided to stop and talk in the freezing cold on a horrendous November afternoon on the south coast. And that was, when he dropped some lively quotes about, I'm probably more out than in, and bemoaned the lack of an offer. And then I remember the next press conference after that, I think Arne said, in terms of my team, he's more in than out. And it was, the other thing that kind of really struck me was that although, the two that ended up signing, although it dragged on a long time until April, I got the impression as well that it actually suited Liverpool in a way, because they felt that, well, actually we know both these players are desperate to stay, and they're both performing at such a high level, and the longer this goes on, the more data we've got in terms of what they're still delivering at this level, at this the twilight years of their career, really. And there seemed to be a lot of kind of respect for the way that Richard Hughes handled it. And of course, the Trent one went a different way with him leaving. But I think we kind of all knew that was just a very, very different situation, and one that I don't think really, Richard Hughes could have resolved once he was in the job, because I think everything already pointed to the fact that Trent was probably going to be moving on.
You speak to a lot of people as part of the book. I'm wondering, from a process point of view, how much of it is your own recollections? How much of it is you just doing that job at the time, and then not reappropriating stuff, but remembering sort of conversations to go into the book, or how much primary research, if you like, goes in? I know there's some quotes from Tom Werner in there and things like that. There's some times where you can't necessarily name people, but there are obviously conversations you're having. So how much of it, is you writing or researching for the book, and how much of it is just the fact that, well, you're working on it every day?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely helped the fact that I've kind of been there pretty much every step of the way during the season. So, of course, it kind of like, when I was trying to map it out, there was a fair bit of material there. And of course, you know, the way it works in the job is, you know, you might write at the time about a particular incident or a particular game or a saga, and then of course the news cycle moves on to something else, and then you might then find out 3, 4, 5 other details about it. But it's like, well, no one's really interested in that now because everyone's moved on to the next one. So then that was helpful in terms of the book, being able to actually, that these things are perfect for the book. And yeah, I just literally I made a long list of, you know, in an ideal world, who would I want to speak to? Tried to contact them, you know, whether some were willing to speak on the record. You know, Tom Werner was really generous with his time. You know, Virgil van Dijk was a big help as well. You know, I was able to sit down with Arne Slot for half an hour at the end of the season. Others were more willing to talk off the record, and of course, you know, in this job, quite often when you speak to, you know, key figures off the record, you get the best content because they're more relaxed and willing to tell you stories from the season that had just gone. So yeah, I'd say it was a real mix really, but I enjoyed because it was just a different way of doing it. Because obviously in the job you're constantly told, you know, keep it tight, you know, it's, you know, if you're doing a match piece or whatever, it's 800-900 words, and then suddenly you're faced with pretty much given, you know, a blank canvas and said, well, just, you know, by the start of August, you need to send us 82,000 words. So it was like, okay, that certainly gives you license to go off on a few tangents here and there. And yeah, it helped the fact that I'd already previously been to like Hungary and spent a day with Dominic Szoboszlai's dad. So when you're doing a chapter on the midfield, you know, you can bring in stuff that I hadn't used from that trip, and you know, been to Amsterdam to sit down with Gravenberg's first coach and things like that. So yeah, that all helped. It would have definitely been a much harder process if this wasn't the day job.
But luckily it is, and as day jobs go, that game against Tottenham where they won 5-1, you know, how much fun was that as a day of work? How much did it feel like a day away? Because obviously you grew up as a Liverpool fan. I don't think that's given too much away in terms of, you know, and then you've ended up, you know, covering sort of Liverpool. And listen, I'm sure most days it very much does feel like a job. You're up and down the country. I was just saying I'm not doing it anyways now between now and Christmas because it's a bit tight, and I can see you looking at me like, yeah, I don't get a choice, mate. I'm going to Tottenham while you're in the pub. But it is a job, and it's tough, and it's relentless. But that day against Spurs at home must have felt like you had the best seat in the house for the biggest party.
Yeah, that was just unbelievable. Yeah, it was, and I think we shouldn't forget that, because I think so much it feels, especially in modern football, it feels like you're not able to actually enjoy something because it's always, well, what about the next one? What about the next?
You
know, it doesn't count. People tell me that it doesn't count for anything if you don't retain the title, and it's like, no. That is nonsense. Like, sometimes you have to live in the here and now in terms of recognizing what you've just achieved. And that day against Tottenham, I don't know how many hundreds of times I've been to Anfield since October 1990 was my first trip, but yeah, I'd never witnessed scenes like that. It was because obviously some people said to me, "Do you think it was better than Barcelona?" And it was just different. I said, like, it was difficult to compare, but I think in terms of like an explosion of pure joy, and I don't think anything comes close to that game against Tottenham, because, you know, I was one of the few lucky ones who was inside Anfield when Jordan Henderson lifted the trophy in 2020. But I didn't actually feel very lucky at the time, because it was just, actually, there was a lot of sadness attached to that in terms of, like, really waited 30 years and this is it. Like, it just felt cruel that, like, that was the, you know, the kind of the hand that Liverpool had been dealt due to the pandemic. But yeah, to look around me in that press box on that April afternoon against Tottenham and see the different generations, and you think, lots of people here have waited their entire lives to, and even when you think back to 1990, and I remember Liverpool winning the league in 1990. But it was like, oh, we've won the league again. Like, it was probably win it next year and maybe the year after. Like, because it was a period of such dominance. It was so different. So yeah, that was probably the most enjoyable chapter to write, actually. You know, trying to build a picture up of that kind of month-long, you know, crescendo of celebrations from Tottenham right through to the trophy lift.
Well, it was wonderful to relive it. So thank you. I just want to finish on what you finish on, which is Diogo. I guess you didn't have to have that chapter. That's technically the season after. You know, you could have finished, you know, at the end of the last game of the season, maybe sort of gone into a little bit of the summer, but you decided to to include what happened with Diogo and the club reaction after. So why did you decide to do that?
Yeah, it was. It just felt like the right thing to do, to be honest. I think it was something I wrestled with a little bit because, like everyone, you're kind of shell shocked after that news broke at the start of July, and then you're trying to kind of process it and think, well, in terms of the book, what does this mean? And as you said, it's not, in a way, it's not belonging to the title winning season, but it's gonna, of course, it's like it felt like completely the wrong thing to do, not to acknowledge it, and I felt that actually, in the end, I kind of thought, well, for me, it feels like the right thing to do to devote the last chapter to Diogo and explain really kind of why he meant so much to so many people. Get some tributes, some of my own memories and recollections of kind of what he was like to deal with from a journalistic point of view, and also try and explain a bit more in terms of how Liverpool dealt with it, because it's Arne Slot and Richard Hughes were already incredibly well regarded internally, but there's no doubt that they went up even further in people's estimations with how they handled the kind of reaction to that, because as a sporting director and a football manager, you don't ever expect to find yourself in a situation like that. And the guidance and the leadership they showed, and so in the end, it felt like the right thing to do to kind of finish the book with those kind of very poignant scenes of Mo Salah in front of the Kop, applauding with tears in his eyes as a Jota song rang out after that opening Premier League game against Bournemouth this season, and almost a feeling of kind of no one really knowing what the future was going to have in store, because it was going to be so different as everyone dealt with that grief and such an unimaginable tragedy. So it was certainly, when I set out on it, it was well, this is a tale of glorious triumph, but in the end it was also one of tragedy, which it just felt like to me that it belonged as part of this book, because Diogo meant so much to so many people.
Yeah, 100%. Walk On by James Pearce is available. It's out now. It's in all good bookshops. You can buy it online. You know where to buy books. It's a fantastic Christmas present. I really enjoyed reading it. It was quite the 12 months, and it was documented beautifully by a man who's been there throughout it all. James, thanks so much for coming in, and best of luck.
Thanks a lot, Gibbons. I really appreciate it.
Inter Milan then. Point wouldn't hurt, to say the least. It's likely a match of low incidents, because that's what Inter Milan bring to the party, Phil. Not much happens in a lot of Inter Milan's games. In their European games, they've won 4, lost 1, but the 4 they've won have been the very, very straightforward ones. The one they've lost has been the hardest one, but it was an away game, not a home game. I'm expecting a pretty dull encounter. Am I wrong?
No, I don't think you are. I think losing would basically make it, I'd say, bordering on impossible to get into the top 8.
Yeah,
I think we'd be on 9 points after 6, and 15 points probably isn't going to be enough, unless there's a very specific way.
16 last time, wasn't it? But I got 16.
I think some with 16.
So it was some.
So it's almost 16 and a half, really.
Yeah.
So
16 plus.
So we base it, but if we win our final 3, we will. I would say 18 is going to get you into the top 8. So it's a big game just in that respect of, do you want to have 2-3 midweeks in March? So it's February. Almost February, sorry, but it's almost no lose, really, in terms of, if you lose, fine, go for it, just go and have a go, and if you get beat, it's Inter Milan, they're a good side. You can sort of wear it in a way that you can't when you're playing the likes of Leeds and you're playing Forest and stuff like that, but at the same time, it is must win, can't lose, if that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense.
You just got to go out and have a bit of a go and show something, I think.
What are you expecting from them?
Well, I think it'll be a hard game. Talking about the team that's currently top of Serie A, they kind of won 4-0 the weekend.
No draws?
Yeah, they've had 4 defeats, 10 wins. Won 4-0, as I said, at the weekend. Really, really tough game, I think. And, I think when I talked before about the manager, I know what Phil's trying to say, but I think for him, this is massive. I think Inter Milan, Brighton, I think if you get 2 negative results in those games, I think it just becomes really, really hard.
So
I think it becomes really, really hard because Liverpool could find themselves. I know the gap to the top of the league, to top 4, sorry, is only 2 points at the minute, but they probably are going to find themselves. If United go to Wolves tomorrow night and win, Liverpool are going to be looking at being in 10th. And that's just, you know, there's only so long that will go on for. So I think the next 2 feel really big. I think he'll have to go really strong. Some tough decisions for him in terms of what he's going to do. But hopefully Liverpool will have a real go. I'd like to see him get Isak and Ekitike into the same team. I'd like to see Verts again. I think the midfield 3 behind those needs to be really, really robust. I would expect Bradley to go again because he can't play against Brighton. I think Joe Gomez will start next to Van Dijk. And then what you do at left back, it's either Robbo or Kirk.
Kirk has played well, by the way.
Yeah, I thought Kirk was good, to be honest. I think overall he's had a little bit of a tough time, and sometimes it's been a little bit unfair in my opinion. That's not to say he's been great every game because there's been issues there, but he's settling in, he's 21 years of age, and I think you can accept that to an extent from a young footballer. But I think Liverpool, yeah, midfield 3. It's 3 from 4 really. You know, McAllister, you got Szoboszlai in there, Gravenberch, Curtis Jones, we said before, played really well. Could have done better for the second goal against Leeds. Pick 3 from them, have Verts in front, and then Isak and Ekitike up top, and see where you go from there. But we'll have to wait and see.
Do you think he'll start Gomez at centre half?
I think he should start Gomez at centre half. If Gomez can go, you know, back to, you know, what can some of these players do at the minute? Can they go again? Well, Gomez obviously doesn't start against Leeds, so you'd like to think he can go from the start against Inter Milan. And as I say, if you're writing it down on paper, it's almost a 4-3-1-2, but it could be a diamond. Listen, you can write this down however you want. But I would have those 3 more robust midfielders behind Vert. And as I say, I'd let the 2 lads go up top because regardless of the Salah situation, we know he's not going to be here anyway in a week. And as you said, you can't see a scenario now where he picks him for Inter Milan, given everything that's gone on. So they've got to start finding a way of getting these 2 number 9s playing together. So not too dissimilar to Frankfurt in that respect. Both play that night.
I've not seen anything that says to me that they can play well. I think they could play well together.
On the centre-back thing, I think it's very easy. You can get Konate out the Gomez workload now. You can get Konate out the team for 3 weeks here. Because there's a free midweek after Brighton. They then don't play... Well, I think was it do we play Sunday the 20th and then the 27th or something like that?
Yeah.
So there's that. Saturday the 20th and
Saturday
Sunday the 20th.
Saturday the 27th.
7th. I could be playing Spurs on Sunday, but not obviously. So you can basically after, you know, there's only 4 games left this month.
Yeah.
Which is a mad thing to say, isn't it?
Yeah, because they play Leeds on New Year's Day.
They play Leeds on New Year's Day. But then that gives you the opportunity. You can take Konate out for a month here quite comfortably. So if he doesn't do it, I think we're safe in the knowledge he's just never going to.
Who's your midfield? I said before, you know, it'll be 3 from 4 in my opinion. Who would your 3 be if you?
I think probably
leave McAllister out again.
I'd leave McAllister out again. I think Jones has shown stuff for me that I've liked.
And
not perfect.
Still do Verts and then
yeah, I think I'd
Ekitike Salah as well.
I think I'd probably do Ekitike. I think I'd probably do Isak in for Gakpo from yesterday.
Yeah.
Gomez in for Konate and probably play that.
I think the Gakpo thing, back to the Leeds, why I would have played Salah against Leeds is because if he's not there on the right-hand side, every attack seems to go down the left because there's no one really playing on the right-hand side. And if it's going down the left to Gakpo, more often than not, you've seen it break down. And I think that's where, you know, I was a little bit frustrated. I've been frustrated watching Gakpo. A lot of stuff is breaking down. So, but listen, what's happened since then.
So many opportunities to play Kirkes in at times yesterday and just did, like some of Kirkes' runs were really good and he's just going, nah, I'm going inside. And there's too much of that really frustrates me.
You happy with what they've said?
Yeah, very much so. I think I'd be amazed if Konate plays just after he publicly criticised him, didn't he? Yeah. So now that he's done that, I can't see a way back for Konate. And then the only thing what I'd add to it is maybe a January early signing is already done for a centre-half to come in. So you only have to get through those next few weeks. So if Gomez even did pick up an injury, there is one coming in January anyways. But I'd play exactly the same team, and I do think that,
as Dave said.
As Dave said, I think McAllister doesn't want it in place in the team at the moment. I don't think Cody Gakpo does. And I'd really, I think the whole fan base would love to see Ekitike and Isak up front and see how dangerous they are. And this is the last chance saloon, I feel like, for Slockers, although I've criticised and I've said that we can see the goals yesterday, 3 of them. We do look more solid this week, and I think he's made the system a little bit more not get beat rather than win, and that's what he needs to do against Inter Milan, and he needs to go and beat Brighton. So I feel like he has to go and get the results, and that's how he will set up.
Okay, excellent stuff. Thank you very much indeed. Really, really good show on this Sunday. So thank you very much to Pete, to Ian, and to Phil, James Pearce, and John Gibbons in that little bit as well. I mentioned those tour dates at the top of the show. Paddy for pulling it all together over there. Thank you very much to him as well. But he's bouncing, you know what I mean? 3-0. 3-0 wins against the Nottingham Forest. He feels great. Top of the world. We've managed to get through all of this without discussing blue Santa suits. That's how serious it is.